Heaven on Earth, the end of 2002. I walked amongst the trees, tall green-topped pillars reaching toward the blue purity of the heavens, along the uneven, leaf-strewn earth. My movement was swift, powerful, determined, as I stepped in the clear-minded trance that steady, continued walking and running brings. The air was cool, but not cold, with a breeze that suggested the coming autumn. The forest was thick with forest sounds, birds singing, leaves rustling, insects chirping. It all seemed so peaceful, so permanent and unchanging, so relaxed. But I could still feel the urgency of life and of the world that hung in the air, reaching into even the most tranquil of places, even here. There was a clearing ahead, where the trees thinned out and the view of the sky remained almost completely unobstructed above. The rays of the sun shined down upon the green and, in the distance, they focused on an area beside a tree, upon a girl who sat there with a book in her hands. Her hair glistened a rich dark brown in the soft light, and it flowed, long and beautiful, down onto her shoulders and behind her back. Her dark, mysterious eyes sparkled with magnificent beauty in her light, glowing face. Her nose was smooth, and her lips were soft, with a touch of natural red. She looked divine, with a beauty not unlike that of the vibrant colors of nature that surrounded her. She appeared so much like she belonged, and yet, at the same time, she was so very much in contrast with it all, like a goddess of the forest, the essence of natural, untouched beauty. When I was not far from her, I stopped and just watched her as she read. She seemed so absorbed in the world of her book that she was no longer here, in this world, where I now stood. Then, suddenly, she looked up from her book and her eyes met mine. I stood still, held in place by her beautiful gaze, unable to speak for a moment. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you." The words finally made their way to my lips and I heard my voice speaking them. "I was just walking and—" "It's all right," she said, in a voice that rivaled the songs of the birds in its beauty and purity. My eyes remained locked on hers and, after a moment, I found my mouth speaking again, though I couldn't remember giving it any message. "May I join you?" "Yes, of course," she said quickly, a smile forming on her face like an inverted rainbow in the sky. I took a few steps forward and sat down beside her, against the ancient wide-trunked tree behind her. We did not touch, but I could feel her energy, powerful and comforting, next to me. I looked out at the radiance of day before me, the rich blue, the shades of green, and I took a deep breath of the fresh, nature-scented air. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I heard her heavenly voice beside me. "I've seen it so often for so long, but it's still beautiful." "It sure is," I said, watching the leaves sway in the breeze on the top of a distant tree. "Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a tree?" she asked softly, almost to herself. "Living hundreds, even thousands of years, but seeing nothing outside of your small corner of the earth?" I smiled. "Actually, yes. Yes, I have." I turned my head to face her. "But I never thought anyone else had." She turned to me and her eyes met mine once again. I gazed into them and it seemed as though they were infinitely deep, like gateways into an ancient soul. I felt as if I were looking out into the vastness of space on a clear night, like I could see so far and yet I couldn't see all. She turned back to the wondrous panorama before us, but I couldn't take my eyes off her, so I continued to watch her. She had a look of awe on her face and, it seemed, a sense of knowing, like she could see so much more than the rest of the world and the sky and everything beneath it. She seemed like the stars, so beautiful, so beyond my grasp. And when I put my hand out to hers, I was a little surprised to find that I could touch her, that she was warm, that she was real. She was a little startled by my touch, but she did not push me away. Instead, she took the bookmark out of her book and placed it into the page to which the book was opened. Then she closed the book, placed it by her side, and opened her hand to receive mine. I placed my hand in hers, and she closed her fingers around it softly. She looked to me and smiled, suddenly seeming very small, very innocent, very alone. She turned to face the blue, and I did too. I felt completely relaxed and at peace, things I couldn't remember ever feeling before in my life. I sat there beside the embodiment of beauty in that Garden of Eden for what may have been an eternity. Together we watched night fall, and then we watched the leaves fall, and then we watched the snow fall. We watched years pass, each one only slightly different from the last. The sky never lost its splendor. The trees never lost their magnificence. From our small corner of the earth, we saw all we needed to see. And though it was small, I was happier than I ever imagined I'd be.